Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. I'm Matt Perkins, joined by BadgerBlitz.com publisher and editor-in-chief, John McNamara. Good to see you as always, buddy.
Good to see you too, Matt.
So we are coming off back-to-back losses for the Badgers, and I'm not going to lie, the vibes in Madison are not on point right now. It seems there's a lot of negativity coming from the fan base, coming from the alumni base. Luke Fickell addressed that in his press conference earlier this week, and I, for one, happen to agree with him, at least with the sentiment that it's better to have fans and alumni passionate and caring that they're losing and really complaining about it than to have apathy, which I think is what Wisconsin's opponent this weekend, Purdue, has. At least in my personal experience from my Purdue friends, they've stopped caring about the program. So that is really not a good sign. So, John, let's do a quick vibe check here in Madison. Just how do you feel about everything you're hearing and that's going on around the program this week? And what can the Badgers do to quell the masses, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, largely a state of frustration, I would say. But like you talked about, Matt, I think that, not to use a Paul Christism, but like the care factor is still there for fans. And like you alluded to, the alumni still seem to care and voice their opinion, and former players still seem to care and voice their opinion. So I don't think we're in Purdue territory just yet, but that's a scary place to be when people just stop caring and you don't put away a chunk of your Saturday devoted to watching a college football game. And it's even more scarier in this landscape when you are turning to those same people and asking them to contribute to a facility upgrade or NIL resources. So that's just a scary place to get to. I'm not saying that Wisconsin's close or, they could get to that place, but I think that's a real fear of an athletic department, is that, your top moneymaker in a football program gets to the point where people stop coming to the games and they stop donating. And that's a tough place to dig out to. So I think enough people still care, but this is a program that's not in the spot where I would say anyone expected it to be in, a year and a half into Luke Fickell's tenure at Wisconsin.
Yeah, I don't think that, it's, like I said, it's at least there's not apathy. Because I've seen so much apathy living in Tennessee, being a Vanderbilt season ticket holder, because I'm married to a Vanderbilt alum. I know what apathy about a football program is, like up close and personal, which financially for me is kind of great, because we have Vanderbilt season tickets and Alabama's coming to town this weekend. And we just sold our one seat, our two seats together for the game, and we made back all of our money for the entire season tickets and then some. So at least for that, we can be we can be happy. But that's what apathy does, especially when you're a destination city like Nashville. Obviously, Madison, sure, it's a great place. A lot of people like to visit. Not quite like Nashville, but nonetheless, I do think that a lot of negativity can be quelled, obviously, with winning, right? Winning cures everything. Winning solves everything. Wisconsin is a favorite, a 2-touchdown favorite this weekend against Purdue. What do you expect the Badgers to, or can we expect the Badgers to look any different, to bring out any new tricks, or do you think it's going to be more of the same on offense?
I think more of the same, but maybe the biggest takeaway from Monday was Luke Fickell talking about trying to get those running backs, more reps, and maybe getting them more involved in the game, in the first, second, third, and fourth quarter, as opposed to, you see a little bit of Tyree Walker here and a little bit of Ches Malusi here and a little Darian DeBris sprinkled in with some Cade Yakimelli. So I think, as they reflect on the first 4 games, you want to get these guys maybe lathered up a little bit into the flow of the game, so they feel like they're a part of it for all 4 quarters. What does that mean? Does it take away reps from a guy like Dupree, or does it take reps away from a guy like Cade Yakimelli, who is averaging 7.5 yards per carry right now? I think that's tough to maybe turn him away. So I think in that design, Tyree Walker is probably your focal guy if he's completely healthy. And obviously, I think he missed week 2 against South Dakota, maybe a little nicked up in the last 2 contests, not 100%. So, if he is, I think he's the guy that maybe you want to get to, 18, 19 carries, and Malusi maybe to 10 to 12 carries, and then where do Yakimelli and Darian Dupree fit in? I think he mentioned 3, with the third guy is maybe a spare, he called it. So I don't know. I don't know if you see 4 backs going forward now. If the emphasis now is to get these guys more carries and focus on the ground game, and overall, I think Wisconsin now, looking at their quarterback situation, is probably saying, what do we do well on offense? Well, not a ton, but I think we can run the football a little bit and rely on that offensive line and rely on a stable running backs that doesn't have a star. But I think they have at least 4 guys you feel really good about playing, and probably 5 with Jackson Aker also in the mix as well.
Well, that sort of ties them right into our first question from the Badgers Den, Guy in GB1. I don't know if that's Green Bay or Great Britain. Either way, thanks for writing in. And they want to know what the plan is with Dupree and Jones. We assume Dupree is not going to have a red shirt. He seems like he's going to be seeing the field every week. But Jones has appeared in 1 or 2 games now, I think. And I'm not on the latest on the redshirt tracker, but is the plan right now maybe to redshirt him at this point, given how deep that running back room is?
I think you would think so. I think you're correct in that, Matt. It's for sure no more than 2 games for Dylan Jones, and obviously I think you could sprinkle him in throughout this year and keep him at that 4, which would allow him to redshirt. Dupree, he's at a point now where I think you just ride with him and you continue to have him play. I would, you maybe have some packages that feature him, some stuff that he gets comfortable with, so you could have him throughout the rest of the season. I don't see a reason not to play him. There's no, reason to redshirt all 3 of those freshman tailbacks this year. So Dupree's likely the guy that, okay, we've made the decision to burn that. Unless injuries really hit that position, you probably aren't going to need to burn Dylan Jones's red shirt. Again, you could play him in 2 or 3 more games, depending on the exact number that he's played in so far, likely 3. But that's not a room where you need to find more guys. I think it's a room right now where you need to find out how those carries need to be divided up moving forward.
It'll be interesting to see how much Dupree plays, because he's looked good when he's been in there. Like, I think it's undeniable that when he's in there, he's making an impact. He's running hard. He looks natural. He looks like he fits in. He looks physically able to compete as well. So it's going to be definitely something that obviously fans and coaches are keeping an eye out on. Also, because if he does play and he does play well, it also shows recruits Wisconsin isn't afraid to throw a true freshman out there when it's important, if they can play. And so that sort of brings me to the next question we've got from the Den, from Paisan, who wants to know how these 2 pretty big time losses to big time teams are impacting recruiting efforts, if it's making anyone reconsider, and sort of maybe changing the way that recruits are viewing the program.
Always a good question, and one that comes up. I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. I think there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, one, when the calendar kind of turns to October, you are hitting flip season and decommit season just naturally, whether your program is 5-0 or your program's 0-5 or anywhere in the middle. Schools are continue to recruit guys, try to poach guys. Now, maybe throw a couple dollar figures out there and say, this is what we're able to do here. So that is something that's always going on, whether you're having success or not having success. The message now is a little bit different when college coaches are approaching, kids who are committed to Wisconsin or kids who are committed to, a program similar to Wisconsin, maybe in the same position of, hey, look, are you sure about your decision? You're 2-2 right now. That's not the same Wisconsin program that it's been in the past. All that kind of negative messaging is stuff that Wisconsin's recruiting department is going to have to kind of combat and shield and remind them of, why they committed to Wisconsin, really lean into those relationships, lean into the summer when they got them on campus and all the reasons why they picked Wisconsin, in the first place. I think a large chunk of this class, I could say pretty confidently is look, they're committed. They're bought into what Luke Fickell wants to do. I think that the record isn't going to be something that really sways them much. But then, you have a guy like Wilnerson Telemock who has talked about likely taking an official visit to Colorado. And when that kind of stuff gets out there, every other school wants to say, hey, could we get this kid on campus in the fall? Why not? And you have unlimited official visits now. So it's not like, hey, I used up my 5, and if I want to go anywhere now, it's on my own dime. So circumstances are a little bit different, but I think a large part of this class is real solid. But look, like I said, there's decommitments, there's flips every single year, no matter what position your football program is in. So it's just the time of the year, the nature of the beast, and everything that kind of goes into recruiting.
I think that also with the evolution of the way that recruiting is sort of positioned within the larger structure of a football program, and that most of the recruiting relationships are with the recruiting team or with Max and Pat and Casey and the rest of their ever growing staff, it seems, over on the recruiting side, right? And so, like, and with that sort of part of the program very sort of in lockstep with Coach Fickell more than anything else, you would imagine that with that, I would imagine, at least this is my assumption that I'm taking, but I would imagine that I don't want to say will lead to less decommitments, but it seems like more consistent relationships.
Right. And I think it's an excellent point because, the coaches, their workload ebbs and flows. And right now, Luke Fickell's, on-field staff, I think their top priority is to be on-field coaches and make those on-field corrections and tweaks and improvements. And you don't have, 10 years ago, those same guys would have then had to have gone home or went back to the office and made 30 recruiting calls. I got to touch base with the guys who are committed, and I got to touch base with the guys who are still recruiting in the current class, and I maybe got to put a couple calls out to guys in the next 2 cycles. So, when you have a recruiting department, and that's not a shot at when they didn't have a recruiting department, but those long sustained relationships with Max or Pat or anyone in their kind of army of in the recruiting department, that's the backbone of those recruiting relationships. And you've seen it with guys before of, Wisconsin has an assistant coach in place, that person leaves, they bring in a new guy, and they never miss a beat because of that long-standing relationship with Max and Pat and all the work that goes into that. So, I would err on the side of, probably leads to less decommitments because of that relationship, but it's not foolproof, right? I mean, you could do the best job you possibly can and stuff can still come up. But I mean, that piece of it, that relationship piece of it is so important. And, it's not just like, hey, Wisconsin's doing this super special thing. It's everywhere, right? It's what you have to do in college football. But it's different than it was years ago when, these guys, these assistant coaches were obviously the primary recruiters. And now I think you could very much say that they are complementary pieces to the guys that Max is recruiting on his list and the guy that Pat's recruiting on his list. And, Casey Robach as well, in as much recruiting as I think he can get into as well. So it's a different world. There's more resources poured in, and this is a big thing that I think that is a change from, a couple of years ago even.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a much more NFL structure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than anything else. And so let's talk about those relationships, especially with the 2026s. They have a boatload from the Midwest coming in for the Purdue game. A lot of linemen. It feels like this is a very heavy offensive line, defensive line weekend of the group that's coming in. We've got some return visitors, names that people will know: King Liggins, Ben Nichols, Benjamin Novak, some other interesting names on there, Gabriel Hill as well. John, who stands out to you as someone to really keep an eye on that will be visiting this weekend for the Purdue game?
Yeah, you mentioned linemen, and you're certainly correct there. And, really to go back to when they brought A.J. Blazik in, he's had obviously recruiting success, but he's done a really good job of getting guys on campus. I think you go back to July and, the guys that he's offered already in the 2027 class had already taken their first visits. They've, got a kid from Texas there, a kid from Canada there. So I think that's, very positive. If in a season where you're looking for positives, I think that's certainly one of them. The offensive line, both in the short term improvements that they made and the long term outlook, I think is strong. The guy that The name that kind of piqued my interest right away when I got that list was Ben Novak. This is no less than his fourth visit, and I kind of put some feelers out there to see, hey, look, what do you think about this? A kid that's been on campus so many times, and the feedback that I got was strong enough where I went ahead and put a future cast in for him. And look, that one's not going to light the world on fire. I put it on the den. It was kind of lukewarm, which is fine. Look, he's a kid that Wisconsin saw at camp. And that is, without a doubt, the best place to find out if you want to offer a kid and how he was going to stack up in everything that you think is important for recruiting, and in bodies. And if you're Clint Cosgrove, probably check out their ankles if they let you. I love you, Clint, if you're listening.
He's absolutely looking at their ankles.
Yeah. So, and then, you get him on campus in June, you have him on campus in July. And I'm almost positive this is the second game day visit he's already taken. Wisconsin, I think, is his strongest offer right now. Louisville's up there as well. So if he were to get things done this weekend, I'm not hinting at it because I don't know for sure, but I certainly wouldn't be4surprised, because he likes a lot of things that Wisconsin represents, and that relationship with Blazik and Blazik and Casey Roebuck is very strong. And you look at the tape, you like what he brings. Body wise, he's a big kid. Maybe he's a guard, but I think he could pop out to tackle. So a little position versatility there. And, I don't know, I've probably said this to you before when we've talked about that group specifically. They've went 5 in 2024, 5 in 2025. That group's going to be smaller this year. They're after a lot of guys, 2 guys from inside the state, maybe 3 now. A kid from Pewaukee is starting to emerge a little bit. So I think if you want your spot on the offensive line in Wisconsin's 2026 class, you may have to act a little quicker than you maybe were anticipating going through in this cycle.
One other name that jumped out to me, quarterback for 2026, Xavier Stern, I think out of Pennsylvania, I want to say. I can't quite remember if he's Pennsylvania or Michigan or where he's from, but should people read anything into that with Jaron Mock already being committed and most places not taking 2 quarterbacks in a cycle? Or do you think Wisconsin's going to try to get 2 quarterbacks in this cycle?
That's a good question. That's a question I've asked, and it's a response that you don't ever get a definitive. They'll give you the recruiting is recruiting. We're recruiting.
Recruiting's fluid. Recruiting's
fluid. Fluid. That is the priceless word right there. Yeah, recruiting's fluid. So there's never. I should say never say never, but rarely is there a set number. But quarterback's a little different, right? And if you look at Wisconsin's tradition, rarely do they go after 2 scholarship guys in the same cycle. I don't have any influence on the recruiting department, but I've been doing it for a really long time, and I think this is an opportunity for Wisconsin to go after 2 quarterbacks in this class. You have one coming in, Jaron Mock. I think there's pieces of Mock that you really like. I think there's a lot more that you'd still like to see. I think there's upside there. I certainly do. If all those things that he could potentially do kind of click.
I'm 100% with you there. I do see the very high ceiling on Mock.
Yeah, and look, I don't think Mock has been definitively told that you are our only quarterback in this class. So if that group went to him and said, we're going to explore or continue to explore the quarterbacks in this group, in this 2026 class, and if for some reason that's a deal breaker for Jaron Mock, and I don't want to imply that because he has not said that, so this is just kind of a hypothetical, but then he's got to make a decision. And if you were to walk away, look, you're not at a bad point in the recruiting calendar where you can't kind of regroup and look at other options. So I think it's an ideal time to go after 2 quarterbacks. That room is thin right now. You have your 2025 quarterback who just recently tore his ACL. There are far more questions than answers at the quarterback position right now. I would just continue to pump talent at it and just see what sticks. Look, I mean, this is a I don't care about your feelings type era, and guys are getting paid, and if you want to have it like the NFL model, then you have to not worry about feelings getting hurt or long-standing ties potentially being disruptive. I'd try to bring back Van Dyke. I try to add a veteran in the portal. I try to add a young guy in the portal, and I try to take 2 guys in 2026. I truly would, and then just see how it shifts, kind of sifts out when everything gets on campus.
Yep, you can't have enough talent on the roster, especially at quarterback, which is the most important position. So I want to switch to to some high school though for the weekend, John. Two really big games on the calendar this weekend. Economowalk heads to Mukwonago, Cedarburg's at Homestead. What do you have your eye on this weekend, and are you going to any games to see anyone?
Yeah, you mentioned, I mean, that Economowalk team undefeated right now, coming off a slew of big wins, right? And that team has kind of been lurking for a little while and in a loaded conference. And now it looks like still a long way to go because they're going to play some good teams. Mukwonago coming up here on Friday, but a team that, I mean, look, maybe not a lot of people had pegged to come out of that conference, but they're playing really good football right now. But it certainly wouldn't be surprising to see Mukwonago trip them up on Friday. So that Division I field is exciting right now. You have Franklin there, you have Kimberly there, a team like Oconomowoc. You could make a case for 3 or 4 other teams from that conference to make a run. Marquette's there. I'm sure I'm missing some other teams. Verona. Wanted to make sure we say Verona. Trey Poteet is having I'm the best player in the state type season.
I called it before the season. John, on our preseason preview, what did I say? I said he was going to be the Gatorade Player of the Year.
You were correct, and I think you'll eventually be correct. I mean, he's just such a weapon on both sides of the ball.
He's so good.
You
talk about fluid recruiting. He's a fluid athlete, right?
Yeah.
And he just seems like he makes everyone else on the field look like they're in a different class.
Mm-hmm.
Like he stands out so much. It's crazy.
And then, you put him in the return game too, and it seems like a kind of a cheat code as well, where, he shouldn't really be allowed to return punts and kicks because he kind of moves at a different, speed. He handles his body at just a different rate than just about everyone else in the state. He's a very special player, and I'm sure Wisconsin fans love to hear that as he's getting ready to head to Tennessee.
Of the top 3 guys in the state who quote unquote got away, who got over the wall, I think Poteet's the one that's going to be the toughest pill to swallow because just everything about him, man. Like he seems like he's going to be a really, really special player.
And you just don't see guys like him from the state. I mean, those special type of athletes at skill positions, you could count on one hand the number of, Division I cornerbacks that have come out of the state. I think it's safe to say he's probably the most talented corner to ever come out of the state. I maybe like to go back and just confirm that, but like him, Trey Waynes, I think Eric Murray from the city conference ended up at Minnesota. So,
but the thing about Waynes is Waynes wasn't a 4-star in high school.
No, I think he's a 2-star.
Yeah, he was a 2-star. He did not have nearly the high school. He was not nearly the high school standout that that Poteet is.
Credit to his dad. He raised him the right way. Hank Poteet, who is now used to be on staff at Wisconsin. Now he's at Iowa State.
And credit to his dad for leaving him there and not taking him to Ames to go to play high school football in Ames, because at least for Wisconsin high school football, we got to enjoy him for 4 years, and it's been a real treat to watch him play high school football. That's a lot of these kids. We've talked about ad nauseum about Cooper Catalano. It's been a joy to watch him play high school football for 4 years, and it's really cool. It's really fun. We'll get to obviously keep watching Catalano, and we'll be watching afar to see how Poteet does. So we are going to wrap it up here today on Badger Blitz TV. We really appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, rate it, review. Get over to BadgerBlitz.com for the best Wisconsin information, the best message boards, and the best Badger community that you will find in the known Badger universe. Until next time, he's John McNamara, and I'm Matt Perkins, and we'll see you in the den.